This episode of Faith 180 deals with topics some listeners may find heavy, upsetting, or disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome, everybody, to Faith 180, the podcast where faith and mental health collide. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Tom Hazelton, and joining me through the modern invention of Zoom. You know, it's brand new, just came out last week. We didn't use it to get through pandemics. The modern invention of Zoom, Mr. Jordan Hamilton.
Hello, world. Again.
We're back to the world.
Well, see, new year, new me.
Using the same jokes.
Just going to recycle the old jokes.
Hey, man, there might be some new listeners who didn't listen to season 1, and you can recycle all the old jokes.
And guess what planet they're from, Tom?
Neptune.
Well, we have listeners in Australia. I wouldn't knock down Neptune as a possibility.
Welcome to today's episode. Welcome to today's episode,
You've
everybody.
been having some troubles with your alliteration.
I don't know what's going on, man. We haven't done this in so long. We're super rusty. You know, my alliteration is off. My pronunciation is bad. I speak English right good.
We probably just lost 3 viewers.
Due to my enunciation?
Yeah. And that's about 60% of our viewers. So if you're listening and you've not yet subscribed to this podcast, we highly recommend it. It comes with some great benefits, okay? First benefit, every Friday when you wake up and you mosey on into the toilet, you can put on Faith 180, okay? Turn on your heated toilet seat, warm up your bidet, whatever you're going to do, but that is one benefit of a subscription. And it's absolutely free on any platform to subscribe, unless you subscribe to the Ultra Super Platinum package, which is $9.99, and there's only one available, and it's still available, so you can call us and get it. That is the Super Ultra Platinum sponsorship bundle, and you get to go on a lunch with Tom and I, and you get to be on a future off-week episode of Faith 180. So $9.99, that's $999.
I was going to say it's $9.99, and you have to pay for lunch.
You're buying lunch. Yeah, we're going with you, but you have to pay for it.
But you have to pay for it. Guys, we're happy to be here. We're in season 2. We're a couple episodes in. We're happy to be here. We're happy you're here. And we are very, very happy and looking forward to today's guest. But before we get there, Jordan, you have some announcements.
I have one announcement. This is my announcement. Sometime in the next year, there's a band that might play in Yarmouth, and it might be put on by Faith 180.
Is it the Jonas Brothers?
No. We had the budget for them. They didn't have the time for us. So darn. Every time. No, it's actually a band that I've started myself with a couple friends.
NSYNC. Okay.
Yeah, NSYNC. You want to know the name of the band?
I would love to know the name of the band.
Did I already tell you it?
You did, but I'm gonna feign excitement for hearing it for the first time.
I never told you. The name of the band is Set List for Sunday.
That's amazing. That is the best name for a band I have ever heard.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. That very organic reaction was exactly what I was looking for.
That is the first time I have heard that, and it was amazing.
It's kind of like, how did that come to be? Well, every week the worship team puts together a set list for Sunday. I was like, what a perfect like 90s vibe, Switchfoot era band name for like a Christian rock band. So that is in the works. We're going to try to host a concert at the church, hopefully, and see how that goes. No idea, no expectations. Gonna pray about it, see what happens. I keep feeling nudged to like put a band together and do something. So I started writing a song. I don't know if I mentioned this, but 6-7 months ago, I started writing, and it just kind of threw pieces together as they would come to me. And then all of a sudden, friends started reaching out proactively, making suggestions or helping me craft the song and stuff like that. So it's never been the situation where it feels like the stars have aligned. Anytime I've thought about doing this, it's like, okay, well, you're doing it on your own. It doesn't feel like that. The first single is taking shape. I can confirm that it has taken on a full Mumford & Sons feel. So we could be the first Mumford & Sons Christian rock band. Possibly.
What shape would you say the song has taken on? Like an isosceles triangle, a rhombus?
No, hexagon maybe.
Trapezoid. Oh, a hexagon. That's a good shape.
Yeah. It's got
Nice.
lots of movement. Hopefully gonna have some banjo flair into it. Crazy bass lines. We'll
Cool.
see. But it's gonna be fun. Upbeat and fun. Lyrically, it's a story. Quite frankly, my story. And it's called Stubborn Lamb. It started off as Lost Sheep, but it became apparent quickly that the sheep in this story continually gets lost. And it's not about a one time like saving of the sheep. It's more like continual and like having a continual awareness that even if I keep running away, he's going to come after me kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Him being God. So it meant from, okay, a lost sheep and it turned into a stubborn lamb. And I think that perfectly describes a lot of Christians today. And it's not a bad thing. I think the uplifting part of the song is it's got a very redemptive bridge and a very redemptive third verse. You basically get to sense the Father's love. So, description of a man that's, or a woman, or anybody that's lost down a path and thinks that it's all over and continually finds themselves there. It's just a reminder that it's not. So yeah, this is the first I've ever talked about it. I don't know why I decided to tell you all about it tonight. I think I'm excited.
Now, by seeing your face as you're talking about it, yeah, you're excited, and
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome that you're
I
able
went to a
to take your
friend's
story.
house. I went to a friend's house Saturday night, and we sat down for 3 hours and just hashed out one verse. What is the verse going to sound like? 3 hours, and you think, oh, that's crazy, but it took 3 hours, and we landed somewhere between "Roll Away Your Stone" by Mumford and Sons and "Awake My Soul" by Mumford and Sons. So I like it. I like it. I pray that everyone else will like it too, and it's inspirational. And who knows what'll happen? I know one thing that won't happen. If I sit around and do nothing, nothing will happen.
True story. And like you said, the name of the band is hilarious in of itself. I love it. It's catchy. Plus, it encapsulates the band pretty well. And that's awesome that you're able to take stories in your own redemptive arc and turn it into a song. And I can't wait to hear the final product.
And I don't think that was intentional. I was kind of like, the truth is I felt the nudge. I call it the nudge, but basically I felt, God saying, it's time you did something with your talent, kid. I used to write songs. When I was 16, I wrote my first song. 16, 17, 18, I wrote about 10 to 12 songs. This was unbeknownst to me until last week when I went on my YouTube and showed a friend one of my recordings. Has almost 20,000 views on it. It was like, what?
That's awesome.
It's from 10 years ago. So, don't put any weight into that. 20,000 people listen to me write a love song. So
hey,
if one person listens to me write a Christian song, then I think mission accomplished. So feels weird to be writing again, but also like it's given me just a sense of purpose, an additional sense of purpose. So
exactly. And that concert, like you said, we are aiming for June. It's going to be Faith 180 Presents and then concert, and more details will come. And just pay attention to our socials and keep listening to the podcast, and we'll let you know here first.
Completely free of charge. I'm thinking food bank donation.
That's cool. Yep.
Makes a lot of sense. Just, think of it as like a worship night, except lots of Need to Breathe covers.
Sweet.
So it's just how my voice sounds most of the time.
So with that, just moving on to the next little bit, Jordan.
Yeah, we got to hurry up before our guest cancels.
We had someone send us in a dad joke.
We did. Yeah, so we reached out, and listen, people, this goes without saying, but write us in dad jokes, okay? faith180crew@gmail.com. Say it again, Tom, just so they get
faith180crew@gmail.com. We want to hear from you guys. We want to interact with you. And fun fact, our guest tonight was the first person to ever email us at faith180crew@gmail.com.
That is true. Yep. First one ever. I just write in. We'll communicate with you. We'll laugh with you. We'll even cry with you.
True story.
And especially with the $9.99 Platinum Ultra Super package. Yeah. I mean, you could tell us jokes when you take us out for dinner.
So let's hear today's joke, Jordan.
So today's joke comes from not a dad, This is actually my nephew, and I think he's 5, going on 6. His mom reached out to me and said that she was listening to our podcast, and her son Tucker wanted to get a joke on. And I said, well, you should email faith180crew@gmail.com, not text my personal phone number. But
we're going to let it slide. We're going to let it slide for you, Tucker.
Nonetheless, we're going to let it go for Tucker. So, Tucker, buddy, here you go. Thanks for writing this into Faith 180, your first dad joke of the week. We're going to insert a cheesy dad intro to this segment right about here. So, Mr. Production Man, do that right now.
Cheesy dad joke of the week.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for doing that. The dad joke of the week, without further ado. Hey, Tom, want to hear a joke about pizza?
Of course, I love pizza.
Nah, never mind. It's too cheesy.
And with that, please send us your jokes. Send us any interaction at faith180crew@gmail.com.
That encapsulates the perfect dad joke. So,
exactly.
Tucker, you set the stage. Let's see who can send a better one in. And remember, keep it clean.
Keep it clean. Keep it fun. Jordan, let's move on to our guest. Would you like to introduce our guest this evening?
So, Tom, today's guest, where do we begin? Should I begin at the top of the paper that we wrote?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Cool. It says introduction. One of the things me and Tom do all the time is talk. We talk on this. We talk at church. We talk between bathroom stalls. When we started talking about season 2, obviously we needed to figure out, who are the people we want to talk to in season 2. Just to kind of give a bit of a heads up, we're trying to certainly go outside of the doors of our own building and church this season, just to kind of expand our reach. Thank you to everybody who listens and shares. That helps us out tremendously. One of the things we do is we go talk to previous guests or people we consider mentors and ask them, who should we bring on the podcast that we can talk to? And this previous guest that we spoke to without hesitation told me about our next guest today. And after learning more about her journey, it only made a ton of sense to bring her onto the podcast. She's an educator, piano player, I think cello player, maybe. Mm-hmm. We can get a nod on that. Okay, good. My next question is, hopefully you'll record the cello on Stubborn Lamb when the time comes, because I love the cello. Anyway, moving on. So piano player, cello player, mother, educator, wife, and a huge advocate for the collision, I call it the collision, of Jesus and mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Tom with the sound effects, the one, the only Nicole Silver is with us today. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
Nicole, thank you for joining us tonight.
It is my honor.
Like I said at the beginning, you were the first person to ever email faith180crew@gmail.com. You and I, we had a conversation at the church one day during a seminar, and you were just like, this is awesome. Keep going with it. And then you went home and emailed me, and I saved it. So
oh, I didn't know. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I sent you the email. Oh, I definitely texted you the email. I probably didn't tell you about the seminar thing, but anyway. Yeah.
Send it again.
I'll send it again. I
didn't know that. I thought you meant like when we reached out to her, she responded to that email.
No,
which I was like, I don't think that
was
happened.
Our first piece of fan mail.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Coincidence?
I think not.
I mean, because
I didn't know that. I learned that listening to you say it tonight. So
there you go. Nicole and I go way back. We go back to what, like 96, 97?
Yeah, we do.
Not that we ever hung out or anything or ran in the same circles, but we've always known each other and always, said hi to each other and talked whenever we saw each other. So
and I can say that our families have known each other for probably equally as long. So I don't directly, what's the best way to put this? We're not in each other's circles, but we're certainly in each other's bubbles, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Nicole is at our South Church campus. So the Yarmouth Wesleyan has a coastal church campus, a South Church campus, and then the main campus. And Nicole, you've been going to the South Church campus now for a little while. Why don't you tell us about, what's going on down at South? I hear great things, lots of growth happening. And then we'll kind of get into, mental health stuff and talk about that from there.
Yeah, I got to be part of the launch team when we first started the church in the South End. And it has been a great experience both for myself, for the family. I participated a fair amount at Yarmouth Wesleyan,
Yep.
and my husband attended and enjoyed it. But in the smaller context where we needed some things and some volunteers and we didn't have the people, he's had the opportunity to step up and he's taken over some of the sound for us. And he's just had another opportunity to lean in, and the kids love it down there. And Parker's, my son, has been helping out a little bit with lyrics. So it's been a really nice opportunity to serve as a family.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's always important when you can get the rest of your family engaged, especially with your church community. It just makes the whole community vibe feel a lot more all encompassing. So South Church is up and rocking. I hear great things about it. I know just through the worship circles that I'm in, new people are engaging every week. There's new people. There's even people now from South Church that I think are coming up and helping out with YWC in terms of, volunteering on Sunday mornings, whether it's connections team, whether it's a worship team, kids men. So it's just a great thing to have South Church literally, I don't know, 10 blocks away. If you were to kind of map it out, it's certainly a little community hub that I think they needed. Everybody in that area needed, and it's just been phenomenal. I know CR has been growing phenomenally as well, and we're going to kind of touch on that in a minute. What I'd like to start with, or I think Tom's gonna hop out of the gate here with the first question. We're certainly going to come back to Celebrate Recovery because it's quite an important program for, I think, this entire community.
Celebrate Recovery is everything I hear about it. It's not, I've never attended it myself, but everything I hear is absolutely phenomenal. And like Jordan said, it's a definite asset for the community to have. So just getting right out the gate here, Nicole, tell us your relationship with Jesus growing up. And I know there was one, but Jordan was there one, but definitely there was one with you growing up. So if you would like to go into the details of what your relationship with Jesus was like growing up.
Yeah, I grew up first in Newfoundland. We lived in Newfoundland until I was 4, and mom and dad were heavily involved in churches throughout my childhood. I was always in church. I was one of those kids who was always there. I was the only one in my Sunday school class in Newfoundland. I don't remember learning about the Bible or learning Bible stories or learning about Jesus. I just always knew it because I learned about it before I could remember learning about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to church in Port Maitland when we moved here when I was 4, and was always really involved in Sunday school and youth group and all the things. But it was the time in the church's history when you heard more about keeping the rules and making sure that you were a good Christian and making sure you didn't do the bad things than what we're a little bit more accustomed to now about God's love for us and how he wants a relationship with us, and we don't have to do things on our own power. And I don't fault anybody or the church. I think they were just trying to do the best they can, and that was kind of the culture of it at the time. So I find
not to cut you off, but I refer to that culture as scaring the hell out of you.
Yeah, it would have been around the time that Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames.
We're coming back to that after. Yeah, keep going, please.
I was too young to see it, but I remember the older teens in the youth group talking about it.
I saw it.
Okay.
And we're the same age, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I lived this out too, so yeah. I'm just gonna listen.
It was that era, and remember like the skits. Remember when skits were a thing in youth group?
Yep.
And like I remember being a part of one in the youth group where there was 2 friends and they got hit by a car, and one was going to heaven and one was going to hell, and the other one was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" Like this kind of guilt.
Yeah.
Or I stole $2 out of my mom's purse and I got run over by a car and now I'm going to hell. And in the book and the music and the lights, like it traumatized me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you reminded me of that terrible 90s commercial about stealing DVDs and pirating.
Steal a DVD.
Yeah, you wouldn't steal a DVD.
Yeah.
Like I call it the do this or else religion. But anyway.
And I think they want it so badly. I'm sure it started with a good heart that they wanted so badly people to follow Christ and to know him.
Yeah.
And that's really complicated. Not it's easy, but it's also big and it's complicated. And how do you explain that to a 5, 6, 7-year-old? What's the most efficient way to do that kind of thing? So
Yep.
it ended up being what it was. But that has certainly created some challenges in rewiring how I think about God, or it did as I was kind of coming into my own and becoming an adult, because as everybody does, I grew up doing mission work with our youth group and running camps and doing all the things. But then there hit a point in my life where I really had to decide, oh, do I really believe this? And do I really want this for myself? Or am I no longer interested in just doing this because this is how my family did it, or this is what my family wants of me?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in junior high, didn't you run like the interschool Christian thing? Was that you that ran that, or at least led it or something?
I don't remember if I ran it or not, but it feels like I would have.
Yeah, definitely. You are correct. Yeah, no, I always remember you being very connected to that in junior high.
Yeah, and I was probably in junior high, probably running away from that, probably at that point. I don't know for sure, but I think if there was a intramural going on at the time, I probably was not participating in any type of inter-Christian school group. But that's, I find it unique. And I know when we first connected and reached out, I said that I think our stories are very similar and interconnected in terms of how we experienced early Christianity. I would not fault the churches either. I think it was just, you have to consider the time, the events of the time. What was the message then? It was certainly one of, you need salvation now. Here's how you do that. And the relationship stuff never reared its head at all. So
it's kind of fun. It's kind of funny you say that, because since coming back to faith, I've had these conversations actually with my mom about that whole mentality of just like, you need salvation now. And I told her, like, I just have visions of you and all the other moms of my friends just sitting around in a circle being like, they need to see this play. It's going to change their life and just everything else. And I'm like, you guys, I told her straight up, I'm like, I hope you realize now that like, it's kind of the wrong way to go about it. And and again, mom's just like, it was the time. And she's like, I can look back on it now with hindsight and be like, that was totally wrong. A lot of the people who were kind of pushing that agenda can actually look back on it in hindsight and be like, that was totally the wrong way to go, because a lot of people, it damaged their relationship with God instead of strengthening it. And they're seeing it, and they're seeing people like our age who walked away from faith, but some are coming back now. And
I just never knew what a relationship was. So,
right.
It's more fear-based.
Yeah, fear-based.
The point of Jesus and the point of church was so that you didn't go to hell. I credit myself with my sister's salvation. When she was little, I told her straight up, if she didn't accept Jesus, she was going to hell. So that
I've said it on this. I've said it on this podcast that the reason I got saved was because I didn't want to be in hell without my friends. It wasn't because I wanted a relationship with God. And again, I don't know. I don't think you can fault or look back and fault anybody. It was just the nature of the time. And to be quite frank, I'm super glad that I now know what a relationship with Jesus looks like. I'm on that boat for now. I wanted to ask Nicole, I can certainly remember mental health. It's probably 16 for me when I first started experiencing anxiety, depression, things like that. For me, my mental health struggles were brought on from head injury, concussions. Some people are certainly born with mental health problems. It's, I don't think it matters when you have them. It's important that we talk about them. So I just wanted to touch on that with you. I know you certainly have a story. When did mental health first rear its ugly head? And what impact, if any, did it have on your relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, I was just supposed to say, just to piggyback on that, you had kind of alluded, you had gotten to a point where you had to decide your path in faith. And I'm just wondering if that is parallel with when maybe mental health kind of became prevalent in your life?
It's connected. I almost like Jesus in the church. I feel like mental health has always been a struggle for me. Um, as far back as I can remember, I know that when I was about 11 or so, I started with self-injury. It's fascinating to me what humans do when they're struggling or when they're hurt. I had never heard of it. I legitimately thought I invented it. I had never heard of it. I'd never seen it. It just, there was a lot of confusion and pain and mental anguish. And my 11-year-old self figured this physical pain is better. I was not diagnosed until a lot later, but OCD has always been a decent struggle for me. Grade 5 and 6, I remember being up till 10 o'clock at night trying to get the math homework lined up perfectly. And it wasn't quite perfect. And I had to erase it and do it again. And just to the point where my parents had actually gone into the teacher and like had asked, like, can she have a bit less to do because she can't actually get through what you're asking her to do. So that was kind of always a thing. As often with OCD, it got connected into church and my relationship with Jesus, which is pretty common, but that fear of making a mistake or that fear that I might sin and not ask for forgiveness and end up in hell. I struggled a lot, like saying, in Jesus' name, amen. Nope, I didn't say that good enough. In Jesus' name, amen. And not being able to go to sleep for 45 minutes to an hour at night because I couldn't quite settle my brain down that I, had everything cleared with Jesus. And if anything happened while I was sleeping, I would be for sure not in hell. And then that progressed into high school, where I had decided that I was going to lose a little bit of weight, which was fair. I was eating Skittles for lunch and not working out. So as with many things, it starts off innocently enough. But then I realized that I can control this too, which led me into dropping a lot of weight. Your body can only sustain that for so long, which led me into a battle with bulimia that lasted about 10 years. So from high school till my late 20s. And in that time, in the extreme, in the severe bulimia, I still did university, still did my undergrads. I just kept pushing through because you can't make a mistake and you can't fail at something. We're still in that church era where you didn't show your weaknesses. You showed up to church with your new Easter dress on and your nice shoes, and you didn't tell people when you were struggling. So all of that really led me into am I really interested in pursuing this religion, I guess is the better word if I'm talking about it. Like, is this what I want for my life? And clearly I decided, yes, it was. But it started me on the path of seeking more. Like, oh, there's got to be more to this.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so
that's a good bit to dwell on.
Exactly. So
if you're okay with that, I think the more we dig into stuff like this, the better it is for everybody listening, for us, for anybody who's looking for healing. So let's chat.
So diagnosed with OCD, and like you said, that definitely played into your relationship with God, because we're in the time frame of basically, the church. I'm using air quotes when I say that. When, you're envisioning this father figure sitting on a cloud, wagging his finger at you, saying, don't step out of line or I'm going to spank you. But in this case, spanking you is being sent to hell. So you're dwelling on literally every decision and choice that you're making. Yeah, that's gotta be rough.
Yeah, it certainly was. And at that time, mental health wasn't a thing. Like,
and if it was a thing, you were rubber stamped crazy.
Yeah. And you were to say that you were struggling with something, to share that, I'm sure for my parents to share that their daughter was struggling with this, then you get people looking at them and judging them, and people looking at me and judging me. And there wasn't the help available, was the other thing.
It was stigmatized.
It was very stigmatized, even to the point when I was in university, and this left a wound that is still, as I still have a scar from. I tried to get into an inpatient eating disorders clinic. Like, according to the DSM, the diagnostic sort of statistic manual. I don't think I said that right. I was severely bulimic.
Okay.
It was not good. It was very dangerous. And I applied to get into an inpatient facility somewhere, but my BMI wasn't low enough, so they rejected me.
Oh man.
Wow. I mean, and that system's still broken. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother conversation. But the thing that's going through my mind is I want to say the ugly thing out loud. And maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but it certainly wasn't okay to have mental health problems in the churches I grew up in. I think there was a bit of a shadow cast on anybody that, you know, was presumed to have those. And I think that's the ugly thing to say out loud.
But there was a certain like, well, you must not be praying hard enough, or you
Yeah.
must not be trying hard enough, or you must not be like, I know churches mean well, but be like, well, just have faith. Just bring it, just give it to God.
Yeah.
Which
Turn it
has
over.
a certain amount of truth in it.
Yeah. You want me to tell the big bad wavy finger God that I did all these bad things?
Never mind the fact that he already knows, but
Yeah, that's the thing I find comical today is like I thought I could run from all that or that I was hiding from any of it, and it's just not the case.
so you're in your mid-20s now. You had said yourself mid-20s, your battle with bulimia roughly.
There's
Plus,
something
like
I don't want to jump over, and I think that's the age 11.
Oh, I was getting there.
Oh, you're going there? Yeah.
You go ahead. You're on the track though.
Well, no, I can't comprehend that. That's okay because I know there's people that don't comprehend my anxiety and depression. I want to understand that
Yeah.
in any way possible, how you get to that decision, I guess.
At the age of 11.
Yeah.
Or in general, like, but especially.
And if you're okay, like, you know, are you hiding it? Who knows about it? Because that's a dark road for an 11-year-old. Wow.
Especially if you like, it's not anything that's ingrained in your mind. Like you said, you've never heard of it, seen it, experienced it. You feel you invented it. So it's just kind of, you know, how does an 11-year-old get there?
For some reason, my brain likes to believe the lie that punishment fixes things, that guilt fixes things. I remember when I was learning to play piano, I remember the song. I remember everything about my room at the time. I was trying to learn how to play Scarborough Fair in the primary book, and I couldn't do it. I kept messing up and I kept messing up and I kept messing up. And I remember being so angry at myself that I was like, I'm locking myself. Like I started piano when I was 8. It would have been around that time. Like, nope, Nicole, you are not coming out of this room until you can get this right, because like you're too stupid and you can't get this. And just talking to myself like that.
Mm.
And if I'm not careful, I can still start to go down that road that, oh, I'm not doing this good enough. So what can I do to teach myself a lesson? Which I think is some of my wiring. And I don't remember learning that anywhere. My parents were not horrible people who talked to me like that.
I was just going to say how much of that, you know, of that mentality of, you know, be perfect at everything came from the churches you were attending at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think if it came from churches or it came from family, it came in a way.
Or even school.
Yeah, that wanted to love and support me. I remember my father, and I'd say this if he was here, I'd come home with a 99 on a test and he'd be like, oh, you should have checked it over and you could have got that one more point, which was meant, I know now, love and encouragement. Like, I want to see you do your best and I want you to become the best person you can be. But because of my wiring and because of my disposition, all I heard was, you can't make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the self-injury was I did something wrong. I made a mistake. I don't know how to deal with this because I can't make a mistake. And well, I'm going to hurt myself. And then next time I won't make the mistake because I'll remember this. Is one part of it. And the other part of it is it takes the emotional pain and it moves location for a while.
You're just trading one thing for stealing Peter to pay Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I think I find this very coincidental, not coincidental. I mean, here we are talking, but I'm currently in therapy. And one of the things I'm talking about is exactly that, was getting the 99 and, why didn't I get the 100? And I think that was a common thing for, I'm going to make a huge assumption here, middle class conservative families in rural Atlantic Canada at the time. I don't think that was uncommon. I don't think it's a one-off because I experienced that as well. I'm so glad that you're able to recognize that now. And I think that's one of the big things that I've learned is just to be conscious of things that lead me places I don't want to go, to have the strength now to be able to look that in the face and understand when it's coming and fight it. And we're going to talk about, obviously the relationship with mental health and Jesus here shortly, but to be able to do all that is phenomenal. And I think it's good to talk about it for anybody, I know we have a lot of youth listeners. If anybody's going through that, I think it's really encouraging to hear that there's a better side to this. And obviously that involves Jesus. Tom, go ahead.
One thing that we like to talk about with all the guests that we have on is we like to talk about the events to what led up to what we refer to as someone's Faith 180. Where did it start for you, and what eventually, led you down the path that yes, this is what I want to follow and believe in?
For me, and there was a certain amount of fear and shame that came with this, it didn't happen in an event. When people get up and they share their testimony and they're like, on February 15th, 19, whatever, that's the day. And I don't have that's the day. I have this really, really slow kind of burn. When my daughter Margaret was born, so it would have been 2016. So by this time, I'm married and I'm doing much better mentally, and I love Jesus and I have a relationship with him. So it wasn't a flip from no relationship to a relationship, but it was this slow burn to oh, there's more. There's way more to this than what I was led to believe or what I've experienced so far. So when Margaret was born in May 2016, I was on maternity leave for a while. So I just had some time. Parker was still in daycare, and I had joined the young mums group at the Wesleyan, and we had started into a book. Jen Wilkin might have been the book, I can't remember, on how to study the Bible. This is less about checking the box that I read the Bible. And this is much more about understanding and seeing the big picture and seeing God in all these areas. So that kind of happened. And then I would walk by the piano every day and have this certain I can play piano and I'm not using my talents for God. So contacted Tom Can. He was doing worship editions, hey friend, I think I should, every once in a while play, which brought me into that team and into that community. I didn't have a lot of community in my life, mostly because of the mental illness and the stigma that was with it. It's hard to have lots of friends and be honest with people when you're struggling so hard and can't share a big part of your life. And from there, it led to serving a bit more and then serving in the nursery. And I did a season where I volunteered with youth, which I really, really loved, which then culminated in being asked to be part of the board of the church and being on the planting team and going down to South. And so it's been a 180, but it's been slow and it's been step by step, because apparently I need the 10-year program.
I love how you said you were just that mom's group kind of really showed you that, you're not just ticking the box, because following Jesus in your life isn't just about adding something to your to-do list, which a lot of people kind of get lost in that monotony of read my Bible, get the check mark, pray, get the check mark. It's about embarking on that life transforming journey of faith in that relationship with the creator of the universe, really. So for you to actually get over that hurdle of check, pray, check. So that's awesome.
And I started for the first time during that. Margaret would often nap on me, which forced me to stop, which was great for me because I'm a go. And I remember reading, and I don't remember the book, but I remember reading the line. It's probably one of the emotionally healthy spirituality books. It is good that you exist. And I remember, if there's a one moment to kind of go back to, and I forget it often, I remember reading that, never knowing that was true before that point, that not what I do, not what I can produce, not how good I am, not the image that I can portray, but like, it is good that I exist and God loves me just because I exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I still forget that if I'm not careful. I still will
Guilty.
default to earning and like trying to get there, but just I could do nothing else from this point forward, and you still love me and delight in me.
All he cares about is a genuine heart.
Yeah.
Like the outward appearances and the performances, he doesn't care about any of that.
Yeah.
He just wants
I have
genuine.
Genuine. I have two things from that. I don't know why, but he keeps bringing up in my life scripturally, and I don't even know where it is. Maybe Revelation. I don't know. Basically says any, sinner that comes back to me and then brings another sinner back to me, they'll be whatever. That keeps coming up to me, and like, I don't have to impact 50,000 people. One person would be phenomenal, but in the isolatedness of that comment of just, impacting one person, a common theme that I hear throughout Tom's story, my story, your story, everybody's story. Mine was joining a book study with Pastor AJ, and it was the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And that was kind of my aha moment. And I think you're making me stop to think about how my own Faith 180 wasn't necessarily, a flick of a switch, but kind of a slow motion turn, if you will, that took, several weeks, combining a mysteriously good amount of worship sets that had songs that just hit me right in the feels. I went to CR for several weeks where I heard the song "So Will I." If the rocks cry out and so will I. And I was like, man, if the rocks are doing it, and my point being, community. You can impact one person, but marinate in community. Should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Marinate in community.
Marinate in community. Let's be our first off-brand t-shirts.
Yeah. Community, just having people just to bounce off of and just grow with, and people to call you out when you're kind of veering off the path, and just people who genuinely care about you and love you and want to see you succeed. Like, community is very important, especially when you're on a faith journey.
Yeah. And being part of one that is willing to help you carry your bag of junk down the road. That's the best way I can put it, because I think I said it. I don't know if I said it out loud or if I thought this on the weekend, but I'd gone for breakfast with some friends. And one of the things that I just felt kind of warm and fuzzy about was the sense of community there, that we all went and did something. And I'm standing in a room with a bunch of great men, and we spent 30 minutes talking about things we struggled with, how we could pray for each other. It's just been so phenomenal. So marinate in community. Maybe that'll be my next song.
I think another big one, just as we're marinating in community, you also need people who are there, who are going to wrestle with you, with your doubts and uncertainties, and remind you that God is patient. God is patient. God is loving, and he's waiting for you, with his arms open. Give me a hug, man.
Those are my favorite things about Celebrate Recovery, because it is that community. And because when you walk into that room, it's one of the few rooms that exists where you really don't have to pretend. If you're showing up, you've already kind of I should probably be here. So you don't need to show up and pretend you have it all together, because if you have it all together, you probably don't need to be here.
Yeah.
And just the level of community and acceptance, to hear somebody else is struggling in the same way that you are. I would have given a lot for that growing up, to hear of one more person who would be able to see me and hear me and resonate with what I was saying. And I didn't, so that I wouldn't have felt so alone. And even if it's not the same struggle that you're going through, usually the roots behind it are the same. I felt this way. And, whether I chose to drink or whether I chose an eating disorder or self-injury, not that it's not important what your vice is, but it usually comes from the same place. So you can find that connection, and you can find that kind of solidarity with people, and have people who are further along on the journey than you are to say, oh yeah, I remember when I was there. It sucked. Like, yeah, but now I'm here. And I remember walking through that, and that's completely normal.
So you had brought up Celebrate Recovery. So I kind of want to touch on how you got started with Celebrate Recovery, not necessarily how you started attending, but how you got so involved with it. Where did that start? And also, what has Celebrate Recovery done for your own recovery, and how has it helped pave a path into the future?
That's a phenomenal question, Tom. I couldn't have wrote it better myself.
Celebrate Recovery kind of happened by accident, but I'm good with that. I'm good with everything that I'm doing happens by accident because of prayer. I'm sure
Bob Ross always called them happy little accidents when he messed up doing a painting. Yep.
Clearly, mental health and relationship with Jesus is always a big deal for me. It's always something I'm pretty passionate about. So when we took the team and we planted at South, Celebrate Recovery moved to South Church. And I attended a little bit. And I mean, I play piano, so I helped Dave out a little bit. There were some nights I just showed up because my husband said, you really need to go to Celebrate Recovery tonight. Yeah, I probably do. Thank you. I still struggle a lot with anxiety. I still struggle a lot with control. So I started to help a bit. I have skills and giftings in organization and in seeing what's wrong and knowing what we can do to fix it. Not necessarily wrong and fix it, but like, oh, I see how this could be better. I almost can't help myself. Like, would you mind if I just made this a little bit easier or a little bit? So I had approached Kelly Hazelton, who was the director at the time, if you know her.
I've met her once or twice.
Met her a couple times. And I said, hey, like, would you like me to take the schedule that you have written out and put it in Planning Center for you? Just, to make it a little bit easier to manage the volunteers. And then it was, hey, like, would you like me to help you a little bit here? And it was during this time where she was heading back to school. So her life was changing a bit. And she had been praying about who is going to take this over. I can't do this brand new thing full time and also run this massive thing full time. And I had been praying about it too, and kind of felt like, oh, I think this might be mine to step into. So it was last March that she had officially stepped down, and I officially kind of stepped into it, which felt really terrifying because the joke is that everybody thinks I've always been part of CR since it started. And to know that, no, I've really only been part of it a little bit here and there. So I kind of stepped into that and working with Tom Can, who's the pastor there. Between the two of us, we run it. I do a lot of the planning and whatnot. But it just, the pull on my heart or the nudge was like, this is yours to step into. My background is education. I've been a teacher for a very long time, like 16, 17 years at this point. So I have some of the teaching skills and some of the admin skills, but I also have the background of mental health that kind of made me uniquely qualified maybe to step in. And it's
No, I was just gonna say that's awesome. Like that's amazing to hear. I had no idea how you had gotten so involved.
Yeah. And it's been great for me in learning to lead something, in learning, because I can't do it myself. So I have to ask people for help, and I was never great at being vulnerable and sharing my story. I remember the first time that I was there just once and playing piano, and Dave Hockley asked me if I'd read steps. So when you're at Celebrate Recovery and you speak, you introduce yourself, and you introduce yourself as a follower of Jesus, if you are, because that's the most important thing about you. And then you also share what you're struggling with. And I remember like shaking that I would have to say my name and what I was struggling with. And now I get up every week and teach or do whatever, and I will tell anybody anything because that's cool. That's not who I am. It's what I'm struggling with or what I have struggled with. But who I am is a daughter of Christ.
Your mental struggles do not define you. They are just part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're not the truest thing about you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How are you with delegation, Nicole?
I'm working on it.
There you go.
I hardly find it ironic that once we kind of realize that God is incredible and awesome and will do anything, how he kind of led us all, and I think he tries to lead everybody into roles that again engage with community. That was huge for my, ability to stay connected to Jesus and God early in my relationship with him, was being in a positive, uplifting community in a space that encourages me to talk to God. Not that that wasn't the case before, but I didn't know, all I was doing was apologizing for the bad things and then still carrying the guilt of them. That's not the case, obviously. So I think obviously the next question here makes a whole lot of sense where we are talking. Your career. You might be going through a career change. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us about that.
So during COVID, we had to teach online. And I mean, nobody loved that. But I watched my husband, who's also a teacher, be really, really engaged and still really into it. And I started thinking like, oh, I don't know. And as I love teaching, I love a lot less all the other pieces of the system. I feel like some of the things that are happening are doing more harm than good in not teaching students how to be responsible and how to be respectful and letting them do whatever they want. Like, and I felt a bit like I was part of the problem. So I wasn't sure what to do there. AJ years ago had preached a sermon on something, either his prayers for the church or something like that. And he had talked about different roles that he'd like to see in the church. And I remember him mentioning counselor. And I remember going home and kind of feeling this nudge and like looking up some schools, thinking about it, and then throwing it away. Like, who do I think I am? that this is mine. Like, nah, it's not. But then during COVID, which would have been 2 or 3 years later, it started to come up again. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I said, okay, God, I will look into it. This is impossible. I'll look into it for you. And I wasn't sure. And I knew I couldn't leave my kids. And I knew I couldn't just, go to university somewhere. AJ had interviewed on one of the Zoom things that we did, because we did a lot of Zoom stuff during COVID, had interviewed Dave Smith from Indiana Wesleyan. And I was like, oh, Indiana Wesleyan. So I ended up applying there. My application letter basically stated verbatim, I don't know if I want to do this, and I don't know if I'd even be any good at it, but I feel like God's calling me to it. And that was my application letter. And I was like, well, if I get in on this,
Yeah.
Fine, God, if I can get in on this, I'll do it. So I got in and I started to take courses, and I spent a lot of time praying about it and like, okay, but I'll do the courses, but what do you want from me? And probably by his grace, he never 100% revealed it. And I still am not 100% sure what that's going to look like, whether I will finish my degree and I'll be a licensed counselor and I could have a private practice and I could work with people that way. But I feel like a lot of what I'm learning and the experience that I'm getting is for CR. CR is not a program that is run by counselors, nor should it be. But I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about myself on this journey. And I've grown a ton and grown in my relationship with Jesus over these past 4 years have been the probably most growth that I've ever experienced in my life. But I will graduate next spring, theoretically, with my degree in counseling. But I also felt over the fall and into December and finally into January that my role at CR, my role serving at church, it was too much. And people would often joke, you have so much on your plate, but I can't get rid of any of it unless I quit my job. So in January, that's what I decided to do, that I really felt a pull to be done teaching. So I resigned from my career. I'll finish out the year, but I'm done. And we decided to move to a 1-salary home and to take that risk to lean into serving and celebrate recovery and ministry. And my husband and I spent a lot of time in prayer and discussion, and he is the most amazing person in the world. He came into our bedroom that morning that I knew. It was January 11th. I knew it was time to resign. So he came in to a puddle of tears, and okay, like he's used to this by now, but like, what's going on? And it's like, I think it's now. And he's like, when's now? Like today, like as early as today, but maybe the end of the year. And he said, all right, whatever you need, that's what we'll make it work. So he has supported all of this and walked beside me, because the only reason I can be out, do Celebrate Recovery, and do the things that I'm doing is he's home with the kids, or he's cooking supper for us that night, or he's serving in his way.
Yeah, I think the same goes out to our wives there, our partners, and for us to even be able to do this podcast. I don't think it's coincidence how God starts opening doors. The more you lean into him, I don't think that's a coincidence at all.
Nope, definitely not a coincidence at all. But yeah, no, to echo Jordan's statement, without our partners, yeah, we wouldn't be able to serve as much as we do within the church. We wouldn't be able to do the podcast.
Yeah. The worship band too. Yeah, that's a lot of morning time.
That is a lot of morning
time. Thank you, dear.
Thanks.
Yeah, come on, Tom.
Thanks, honey.
There we go.
There it is.
That's better.
So you were talking about serving, and Jordan and I, we've talked about it a lot in the past as well. And when we first started serving within our church at Yarmouth Wesleyan, it's intimidating getting up in front of your peers because you don't feel good enough. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned all that earlier. And I know all of us have heard at some point people just don't feel qualified to serve in the Lord's house. And we definitely didn't feel qualified. And I know Jordan and I both disagree. It sounds like, what's that?
I said, still don't feel qualified, but understand the assignment.
Right. And I'm assuming you now disagree as well. So what does that look like for you, disagreeing?
Oh, I disagree. I think that's kind of the point, is that you're not qualified.
Right.
I think if you walked into a room feeling fully ready and qualified, that maybe that in and of itself means you're not qualified. I've fought with God a lot. Like, I don't think I can do this. I think you have the wrong person. I'm struggling too much to like, how can I struggle having a panic attack here, but then lead this really big program the next day? This doesn't make sense to me, but his grace is sufficient. And I think there's something to be said to lead out of your vulnerability. I think it offers the invitation for others, because if I'm up front talking and I've not walked through these things, or I'm telling people, the niceties of, Jesus wants to save you and he wants a relationship with you, and I don't have the background to know some of the challenges that come with that, and the challenges that come with addiction, and the challenges that come with mental health in the church, I don't think the words I say hold as much weight. And I think that the authenticity piece, and even the acknowledgement of, yeah, I'm just me, and I can't do this on my own, and I don't have it all together. But what amazing grace that I get the opportunity to lead, that I get the opportunity to offer the invitation to find healing and freedom and recovery. Is it terrifying to grab a mic and go in front of the room? Yeah, it often is. And it's funny because I teach all day. I stand in front of people all day and talk. But then when I walk down to Celebrate Recovery and take a mic, it's different. It's a different one because people are paying attention and listening to what I'm saying.
You don't need to call their attention. Yeah.
I don't understand why you're paying attention to me. But I know that it's where I'm supposed to be, because when I get up there, there's a lot of peace. Not necessarily peace like I'm not nervous and I'm not very aware of the weight and calling, but like I don't have to do this myself type of piece to it. Yeah. That God knows what I need, and he will also provide all those things. I just need to show up.
That's how I felt when it came to starting serving in youth ministry. I kind of felt pushed towards that, and I had a ton of people telling me, you'd be great at it, and I fought it and I fought it and I fought it, and finally I gave in, and I've been a part of it for several years now. And like you said, there's just a lot of peace that just comes with getting up in front of a room of people not having something prepared, but yet you say something so profound that it touches someone's life. And, that didn't come from you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I got 2 points to that, Tom. The first being, I think of the people that God used throughout the Bible to spread his word and to do things. That's one of the big things that I like to come back to, is like, they weren't perfect people. A lot of them were very far from perfect. I think that's what makes it so unique. God can use anybody. I was just, to Nicole's point earlier, I had got up last Sunday and led worship. I thought it went great. Everything went well. And I'm walking out of the church. My mom's behind me, and I start having a panic attack, and I have no idea why. And she's there going, well, just change what you're thinking about. And I was like, I don't know what I'm thinking about that even did this. Like, I just need a few minutes and I'll be right out. But somehow that morning I got up in front of however many people came through the church and belted my heart out. So you can certainly find strength in Jesus' name. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to close out this conversation. And let me just be the first to thank you. I know, Tom, you probably say the same thing.
100%.
This is
having some conversations here tonight. It's just like, I need to reach out to you after this and have a couple conversations about things on my heart.
Yeah.
I'm open to talk with anyone, anytime.
Yeah. And I think tonight I'm going to close the episode, just by praying for everything. Seems like the appropriate thing to do. We do have one more question for you, but I will say, very impactful conversation. Thanks for being open about pretty much everything that we asked. I mean, it's just been a phenomenal conversation. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people.
My pleasure.
So to the listeners that, might be going through similar problems that you did growing up, maybe they haven't completed their Faith 180. What's your message to them? What do they need to know? Tell us all the good stuff.
First, I don't have it all figured out yet.
Amen.
Just for clarity's sakes, I do not. But God is gracious and merciful and walking with me through every step, and has brought me community and brought me people to go alongside. Shameless plug for Celebrate Recovery. If you are struggling, it's a great place to be. It's a great place to learn to be honest. It's a great place to learn that you're not alone. I mean, it's near and dear to my heart, and I love it very much. But if your story is yet untold, and if your story is still a big struggle, and I'm not great at it, which is why I'm saying it, to be kind and gentle to yourself, and to offer yourself the invitation of space to struggle and to learn and to grow, and to not have to have it all figured out, and to not have to pull yourself together first before you try to find somebody to help, and that you're not alone. I bet you can find somebody, and I can bet you can find somebody pretty close who, at the very least, understands your story and more likely has walked through something similar. Even if stories aren't identical in the events or the things that we struggle with, the feelings and the emotions and just the questioning and the doubt is all very, very common between us.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Honestly, that's the perfect way to wrap up the entire conversation here today.
Yeah. Major theme: community, communication, just so important to be able to talk about these issues. And, I don't think, hopefully anybody listening to this in the future, Nicole, if you have a practice, I hope that, the Lord blesses that completely, and that maybe some of our listeners reach out in the distant future. I think it's phenomenal what you're doing. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
I know it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, it's way past
it feels like it's past my bedtime.
I know, right?
I would certainly like to just pray the podcast for the podcast. Then I think our new music is going to take us away.
You're right. It is new music, new outro.
Yeah. So am I still singing the jingle?
Hey, that's up to you, bro.
Well, maybe I'll pray and sing the jingle. So turn your radios down. Dear Lord, I just thank you for this podcast, this platform. I thank you for guests like Nicole that are willing to come on, share their stories. And I just pray that somebody listening to this will find this impactful and help them navigate, tough mental health problems they're going through. I pray over all of our families. I pray over our churches. And I just want to thank you for this evening. Pray that you'll bless this podcast in your name. Amen.
Amen.
It's been a great conversation. Should I sing the jingle, Tom?
I mean, you've been hyping it up for the last minute and a half.
Faith 180. You take your faith and you turn it around. Faith 180. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Faith 180 is an independent podcast produced and hosted by Thomas Hazelton and Jordan Hamilton. Producer and editor Justin Gaudett. Theme song Goodbye Ol' Me from the album First Things First, used with permission and performed by Consumed by Fire. Available on all streaming platforms. Visit consumedbyfire.com and follow the band on social media, linked in the description of this episode. Follow Faith 180 on Facebook or email us at faith180crew@gmail.com.